Okay, this next question comes from Peter Rosado. And Peter says, is it better to hire a tutor providing services in a place of business as an independent contract or as an employee? The background is due to COVID-19 and distance learning, we'd like to bring a tutor into the office for the parents of kids. Is it better that they get a business license and we hire them as an independent contractor rather than as a direct employee? If an employee, we would then incur health, Social Security, and other benefit costs. Can we deduct this cost on taxes, contractor or employee? This is specific to California. Okay, so Peter, first off, I'll say California, as you know, is a very, very unique place to do business. If it were me, I would talk to a human resources person, and I would also talk to my accountant. If you don't have a human resources person, I can introduce you to Marcia and have her answer this question. Because if you're in a hurry, let me know. Leave a comment on the Facebook post when we post this. Leave a comment and let me know if you're in a real rush to get an answer, and if so, I'll connect you with Marcia and get her to answer it for you. Otherwise, she's going to do a live stream this month, and I'll make sure she answers this. But from a CPA perspective, Tab, who is a CPA here in the group, and he's a mentor, I would talk to them as well. Another thing that you want to take into consideration when doing things like this is insurance and liability protection. If you bring in somebody to work with the kids of some of your employees, your employees' kids, in my mind, caution flags go off. What happens if that independent contractor is not legitimate and they do something wrong to the kids? What's the liability to you as a company? So there's probably going to be some waivers and release forms and things like that. You're getting into a really gray area here that I, as a business owner, want to be very careful from a liability perspective. You know, sometimes we let our heart and our desire to do things for our employees take over, but then we get into, well, what are the repercussions of doing that? We want to make sure that we know all those answers in a worst case scenario, because every time we do something like that, we create a liability. To answer your question off the top of my head of whether or not it would be a 1099 or an employee, I would certainly work with a company or have a 1099 person come in and then have contracts, and then once again have waivers with the parents. I would make sure it's supervised in a perfect area. You may have to have some sort of special room. I mean, there's so much that I could see that would go into just making that decision. You know, think about all of the licensed babysitting companies and nanny companies and all those things. So you might want to look at those things to understand all the different liabilities that go into working with children. Okay, I hope this answers your question. Indirectly, I can put you in touch with an accountant for the tax questions, or just reach out to your CPA. If you don't have an HR person, talk to the HR person. And then ultimately, you might even bring your insurance agent into something like this, because the insurance agent's going to tell you what kind of liability protection. And then you might even need an attorney to draw up releases and waivers for the people coming in and working with your employees' kids. So there's a lot that goes into providing something like you're asking. And now you're like, well, shit, Shawn, I ain't doing that now. There goes that idea. But these are the things that I'm glad that you asked the question, because I would have hated for you to bring in somebody, they start working with an employee's kid, and then something happens and your company's held liable. I'm glad that you asked the question, okay? Shoot a comment on the Facebook page and let me know if you need some connections with some of these individuals, okay? Thanks, Peter. Appreciate it, brother.